What was your favorite part about the trip?
It's difficult to put words. I would say the trip itself. It was such an amazing way to see Peru. Seeing it through the spiritual and mystical way was so completely different than if you'd just come as a tourist. And I also love the direction with the four winds, doing it from the south and making the circle around the medicine wheel was just an amazingly wonderful way to see it, because you just end up sort of completing some kind of a circle that's great. And I would say that Jon is just such a gentle, intuitive spirit, that to be guided on this trip with the condors and in the jungle was just, you can't put words to it. It's an experience. It's just really hard to put words to it, but it's pretty amazing and pretty awesome.
What'd you get out of it that you weren't expecting? Or what were you expecting and something that happened that was different?
The bonding with the group, it was like we were connected on some level that was just almost instantaneous. I think because we all had the intention of coming with a shaman and coming to do some work. So I think that was just the fact that the group bonded so instantaneously and kind of held space for each other was pretty amazing. Yeah.
What was the most unusual thing that you experienced on the trip?
Most unusual thing, probably the ayahuasca ceremony, and I'm glad that was first because it's also now the most distant memory, but I think it was a very necessary part of the whole process, and just that there's a lot of work still to be done, but that's the journey, and everybody has their own individual journey, and just the self-acceptance, the fact that your journey is your own journey, and you may want it to go faster than you can, but it has its own pace. And my biggest lesson is just patience and just being there and showing up, and it'll show up and the process will continue. Yeah, that's the biggest lesson for me. Yeah.
What do you think of the hotels and the places that we stayed and all that?
Just amazing. I mean, they're just set in the environment, set in the land, set in the spaces. They were completely amazing. Just really the nicest places I've ever stayed in, and just so in touch with nature. And just, yet still treading gently on nature. So they were pretty incredible.
What would you tell someone that was thinking about, like, what kind of person do you think should come on the trip? What would you tell someone thinking about it?
I would say someone that is just to see Peru in itself is an overlay that you're going to have a wonderful time no matter what. And then if you have any intention of trying to grow, or if you're in kind of a spiritual path or just a growth path, you're going to get so much more than you could ever expect, especially coming with Jon. He's just got such a gentle, insightful spirit that it's just wonderful to be around him and anyone that he attracts. Yeah.
What'd you think about all of his theories on ancient aliens?
That was new. I mean, we've all heard about, UFOs, and I love the phrase that he used from one of his mentors, that he was interested in the people that come through the tears in time. So that's just a big curiosity that's out there for me, but it's wonderful because it's opened up a door for me that is completely non-judgmental and just open to say, wow, maybe there is another way of thinking of things and looking at things. So it's just sort of an open door.
What did you notice about the contrast between what the tour guides told, like when we went to Coyardi or anywhere in Ollantaytambo or any of that, versus what Jon had to say about it?
Well, it was interesting because I love all the cultural and the facts and the interesting. So for me, I needed both, but it was always very interesting. The part that I wanted more of was the spiritual and the ancient medicine, the ancient wisdom that, we've lost or we've buried under so many layers. So I was always more interested, but I needed both because I needed the bigger picture for the context, but then sort of the truth comes out in the medicine or the ancient history. So there's a contrast between them, but if you can integrate them and realize that just because someone tells you something doesn't mean it's true. So if you get that other layer, then you can look at it and evaluate it for yourself and possibly get closer to the truth.
How do you think your life will be different when you get back home, or what's one thing you're going to take back home with you that you didn't have before you started?
To figure out how to grow corn.
Say more about that.
to just the metaphor of the things we learn, if you don't put them into practice, that you're really not learning how to grow corn with the wisdom that you've picked up. So I think just moving slower, being more gentle, and creating space and just being part of the bigger picture rather than trying to make the bigger picture, control the bigger picture, just to be more open to what's out there.
And you started this trip, kind of because you sold your company.
Right.
And you're like, I just want to do something different, figure out what I'm doing next. Do you feel like you made just shifted anyway, or is it too early to tell?
It's too early to tell, because I think what came for me is I still need a lot of time to rest, and just because it's only been 3 months, and I kind of came with the expectation that I would get some answers, and I think the answer I got was to be patient. And I had already started on that with my individual work with Jon, that creating space and not filling things up with to-dos or shoulds or roles. And it's interesting because it seems like everyone around me is more worried about it than I am on some level. They keep saying, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know yet. I'm just going to wait. And I'm confident that it'll show up, and then I'll show up. So I'm trying really to maintain, and that's been the biggest lesson in this trip too, is that I need to be patient. I may not have had as much visual input as someone, or as much artistic input as someone else, but my own journey is just to rest and be patient, and allow my process and my journey to take its own course.